In the name of God, the Holy and Undivided Trinity. Amen. I have to admit this morning that gospel lesson makes me really tired. Actually, most of the gospel lessons that make me really tired come from John's gospel. And it's just a lot. I think it begins with just a weariness about imagining Jesus over and over again just face-palming when his disciples said something a little off. Because the first question the disciples ask when they meet this blind man is, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind? I just see Jesus sagging. It wasn't him, and it wasn't his parents. He's born the way he is so that God's works can be revealed in him. You know, that's why all of us are born, so that God's works may be revealed in us. Also makes me tired because I really don't know if I were blind, I don't know how I would feel about my blindness being used as an example and a metaphor for misunderstanding. So it makes me tired. It makes me tired just the number of times this man is asked, well, what happened? Over and over and over again, it becomes like a bad courtroom drama, badgering the witness. You know, what happened? How did it happen? Call in his parents. And they're like, well, he's of age, ask him. Why are you asking us? And just the whole fear, you know, that they were afraid they'd be put out of the synagogue. And that's probably an anachronism. It probably wasn't until much later, and this didn't happen. And so all these things just make me just weary. It's like, it's just too much. But what I latch on to and what gives me hope is that very near the beginning of this, Jesus reminds his disciples that no, it's not because this man is a sinner. And that's the thing. I think sometimes our imagination about God is lacking. And if we really imagine God to be the sort of God, and this is the sort of sitting up on the clouds God, just zapping people for arbitrary reasons, we're missing out on the fullness of God's love. And what Jesus reminds his disciples right after, he says it's not because of his sins that this man is blind. Jesus says we have to do the work of light. He says, while I am in the world, I am the light of the world. That gives me a great deal of hope, because there is a big part of me that knows that there has never been a time, and there never will be a time, when the Christ is not in the world. And so for Jesus to be the light of the world, that is something that happens for all time and in eternity. That light, as the prologue to John's Gospel reminds us, that light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not overcome it. So there's a great deal of hope in embracing Jesus as the light of the world. And when we begin to see this world the way Jesus sees this world, a lot of these things kind of fall away. Like if we're Jesus' disciples and we start to see the world the way Jesus sees the world, and in the light that Jesus sheds on this world, we begin to realize, oh wait, that was a pretty dumb question I asked. And when we begin to see this world the way Jesus sees this world, we know that even when we are tempted to separate from community, to pull ourselves into isolation, we get called back because we see the world in the light of Christ, and we know that we're diminished if we try to do this on our own, if we try to do this for ourselves, we're diminished. And so we come back into community. When we see this world the way Jesus sees this world, we begin not to worry so much about these are the rules, because that's another thing that makes me tired, is once again we hear about the Pharisees getting upset because Jesus does something good on the Sabbath. And I know, because I've said it before in sermons and you know what I'm about to say, it's just the Pharisees in this story, because the Pharisees in real life were doing good work. But when we fall into the trap of saying, well, that breaks the rules, or that's not what the prayer book says, or wait a minute, what about this? Or we've never done it that way before. See, all these things, you see me getting weary, you see the weight. You see the weight. When we get more interested about the rules than we are about doing good things, being together in community, then we've missed the light that Christ shines into our lives and into this world, that light that changes us, that helps us to see ourselves more clearly, helps us to see others more clearly, helps us to know, no matter how dark it gets, that light continues to shine. So after all the debates and after all the wait, tell me the story again, until this man just gets frustrated. I don't know how he did it. All I know is he put mud on my eyes and I went and washed in the pool and now I can see. And that's us. We may not have been born blind. We may not have this ailment or that ailment or this thing that we don't want to be a metaphor for anything. But we are people who recognize that we see differently when Jesus gets involved. When we let Jesus make mud and smear it on our eyes. I love that miracle. It's very earthy. It is rooted in the stuff of this world. This stuff, fleshy stuff, stuff that stinks sometimes, and stuff that gets dirty, and stuff that needs to be washed. And yet, Christ is there. Doesn't matter. We don't make ourselves clean. We don't heal ourselves. We don't, heaven forbid, try to make ourselves perfect. We just open ourselves to the reality that when we see ourselves, even through the mud smeared on our eyes, when we see ourselves the way Jesus sees us, it changes the way we go through this world. It changes our spirit. It renews us, it heals us, it makes us whole, and it helps us to see as God sees. So after all the debates, when the people drive this man who had been blind out of their community, I think probably because they just can't stand to be around someone who has been changed in that profound way. I think sometimes we have a tendency to do that. We get suspicious when people's lives are renewed, when people turn over a new leaf, when people start to walk through this world in a new way. We say, oh, what's happening there? We get like all these people in this story today. We want to know, how did it happen? Surely this isn't the same guy. No, this has to be somebody else. Well, when we begin to see who we are, it changes the way we walk through this world. When we begin to see ourselves as Christ sees us, It changes the way others see us. And so we get to the end, and Jesus comes to this man who has been driven from community. Because even when we are isolated, guess who reaches out to find us? It is Jesus. It is the Son of Man. Son of Man is one of those Aramaic phrases, and at its simplest level, it just means a human being. A Son of Man, a human being. But by Jesus' day, it had taken on the idea of one like a Son of Man who will come on the day that God fulfills all God's promises. The Son of Man will show up on the last day to usher in the reign of heaven, to make all things over as God has seen them all along. And we are changed by that. Tell me who the Son of Man is so that I can believe. And Jesus says, ta-da, I'm right here. And that's another thing to tease out of this. Oftentimes, several times in John's Gospel, Jesus will say, I am one thing or another. He did this morning, right? I am the light of the world. I am resurrection and I am life. I am the good shepherd. I am the gate. I am the door. I am. And every time in John's Gospel that Jesus says, I am, we should have a vague bell ringing from the story we heard about Moses and the bush that burned without being consumed when Moses was in the presence of God. And Moses had the temerity, the just gall to ask what God's name is. And God responds, I am. So when Jesus says, I am the light of the world, we've been invited into a mystery that transforms us. We're invited into a mystery that helps us to see this world with new eyes. It helps us to know that no matter how dark this world gets, no matter how difficult these days are, we are in the presence of the one who is the true light shining in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. We walk through this world with the one who sees us as we were always meant to be, who sees us as the beautiful, beloved children of God that we have always been. And that changes us. And as we live deeper and deeper into community, as we live deeper and deeper into the life of discipleship, we're reminded over and over and over again that that light is never dimmed, that that light has been present since before the beginning and will continue shining through to the end. We're reminded just by the repetition of life together that we see Christ in each other. We see Christ in each other, and that sends us out into this world to look into every corner, into every face, and know that we are seeing Christ there too. Amen.